Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session, Defending Against 8base. My name is Sergio, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Lockpoint, and today I'm going to be your host for this webinar on the 8base ransomware. So in today's session, we are going to delve into everything 8base or everything about 8base. So from what it is to its detection and how we can respond, right? But to help me explain the technical aspect of this, I have with me my colleague and author of our emerging threat report on 8base, Anish Bogati. And also today we have a known face, Eddie Almer, our product director at Lockpoint. He's a regular guest in all these webinars. So before we start, allow me to tell you some practicalities, all right? First of all, this session is recorded. In case you haven't noticed, there is always like a little mention on the top of the screen about this. So we record it because then we can share it with you later and offer this webinar as well on demand to others who couldn't make it today. In addition to it, let me remind you about our emerging threat protection service. This is a managed service here at Lockpoint, and it helps you to keep you up to date with the emerging threat landscape, right? So we not only provide you security reports on different but also new risks, but we also provide customized detection rules together with tailor-made playbooks, both for investigation and response, and these are pushed directly into the Lockpoint converging platform. So it basically gives you like immediate coverage of newly discovered threats. Is delivered by experienced researchers and analysts, just like my colleague Anish here. And the rules and playbooks from the created in this emerging threat protection service are tailored to the needs of our customers and their environment. But now let's go through the agenda and let's talk about the subject in hand, right? Which is 8base. So throughout this session, we're going to cover several aspects on this ransomware on 8base. My colleague will start with a little introduction on 8base. So Anish is going to tell you a little bit more on this pesky ransomware. And after that, we will talk about the attack. Then we will proceed a bit more with the discussion on how to detect 8base. So eventually we can just talk a little bit more on how to respond to this ransomware. We will be also taking some questions at the end of this presentation, at the end of this webinar. But if you have some burning questions along the way, doesn't matter. Feel free to add them in the chat or using the Q&A feature, so we can just go through it during the Q&A session at the end, as I mentioned. But now, without further ado, let's get started. So Anish, Eddie, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Sergio. So first, Anish, I guess you're going to talk about who the attackers are, when this all started, and what the impact is. Why do we care about this attack?
So moving on to the background, 8base emerged as a new ransomware group, first appearing on the cyber threat landscape in April 2022. Up until May 2023, their activities remained relatively passive, with minimal number of victims that are being leaked. However, a significant surge in their operations occurred after May 2023, resulting in large numbers of victims' data being exposed on the leak side, which can be seen in the time chart here. And prior to the active operations, the group's Twitter account posted a tweet warning leak of large number of victims' data from the past year. So moving on to the attack. So 8base threat actors have utilized multiple malware families in various stages of attacks to achieve their goal. They have known to utilize smoke loader, SystemBC, and Phobos ransomware variant. So smoke loader is used for dropping the main ransomware payload, and SystemBC is used for encrypting the traffic going to their command and control server. Although we don't have incident data related to 8base group, but we'll be providing summary of attacks observed in the wild by vendors such as Sentinel, VMware, and also in addition, we have performed analysis of the relevant malware families use and try to provide brief information on the capabilities so that detection rule can be created to detect intrusion at various stages of attack chain and provide appropriate response. So moving on to the smoke loader. Smoke loader is also known as Dofile, Sarik, and Smoke. So as its name suggests, is a loader malware, of course. So it is used to deploy other malware families and payload in the victim systems by /botnet, and it is developed by Smoke Spider and were attributed to Russia-based cybercriminals by CISA. Smoke loaders can be dropped in the system by various techniques, and some are phishing and by exploiting vulnerabilities in public facing applications, and in other stages of attack, attackers can manually drop it. And besides its loader functionality, it also has some backdoor functions, RAT capabilities, and can facilitate data exfiltration. For smoke loader, we have analyzed multiple samples, but for this webinar, we'll be only discussing about 2. So moving forward, let's take a look at one of the smoke loader sample, which is an Excel file. We have taken the reference from ini.run. First, the malicious Excel file is executed, which contains exploit for CB 2017-11-882. So it is a memory corruption issue in Microsoft Office Equation Editor that allows adversaries to execute arbitrary command or code on the victim systems. So after exploiting the vulnerability, communication to command and control is observed and payload is dropped into the system. The payload is named as chromium.exe, which masquerades as legitimate Chromium binary web browser. So moving on to the another sample, we have chosen a VBS-based smoke loader payload for our analysis and executed it using WScript. So I think it is visible here. So after execution of VBS, it responds PowerShell to execute basic obfuscated commands. The decoded payload is here. The deobfuscated payload uses inbox expression, a PowerShell command, which can be used to download the file. After downloading the htinfo.txt file, the content inside is executed. The instruction file contains the 2 hard-coded C2 addresses to download the other stages of payload, which is dropped under the user directory, as you can see in the image. So moving on to the system BC. System BC, also known as Codoxy or Droxydat, is a SOX5 proxy bot that also has remote administrator tool capabilities. So its older version utilizes Tor to conceal addresses, and it has been used by multiple threat actors such as Blackbuster, Vice Society, Ryu, Aggregator, and QBuzz. And it has also been used with campaigns such as the Colonial Pipeline attack. The C2 addresses for the system BC are hard-coded by XOR encoding in the payload file, and it can also facilitate encryptions of traffic going to the command and control server. So moving on to the system BC analysis, we have again taken reference from the ini.run. So after initial execution, system name and language discovery is performed, and a .zap file is dropped under the task folder, which is later used for task scheduling. Also, the task is scheduled to be executed with the start command and argument. So after executing from scheduled tasks, communication to C2 is performed. So moving on to the malware families. 8-base don't have their own ransomware variant and are known to utilize Phobos ransomware variant only. But guess what? Upon analyzing the ransom node, some similarity with Dark Angels variant of Babuk ASXi was found. But for this session, we'll only be discussing about the Phobos ransomware variant, as not much of Babuk use is known, besides similarities found in the analysis performed by the Bushido token. So moving on to the Phobos analysis. After execution of the ransomware, it first modifies the internet settings. So the registry can be seen here in the path, and the values modifiers are in the data sections indicated by data 1, data 0. So after that, it queries the registry key related to startup folder to retrieve the path of these folders. So after retrieving the startup location file, a copy of the payload is created in app data local folder under the current user directory, and the created file is placed under the run registry keys, as you can see here, which is used for persistence. It is it is helpful for case where unexpected interruption or PC shutdown is done, so like encryption process doesn't stops in case of interruptions. So after that, after maintaining persistence, the payload file and folder discovery is performed to encrypt files except those system crucial files. As shown in the image, encrypted files are appended with that ID, some random values, and the mail address, and with the database extensions. So besides above shown under the hood activities performed using API calls, some process will respond to perform certain activities. It is done side by side of the encryption process. All the binaries executed are Windows internal binary, so adversary didn't have to download any others. First, they disable Windows Defender by net assets. The procedure can be seen here, and after that, they delete shadow copies using BSS admin and WMIC. After that, the boot configuration data is modified to prevent auto recovery function of the Windows and to ignore all the failures or issues during boot process. And after that, backup catalogs are deleted using WB admins. So,
Anish, so
yeah,
this is quite a sophisticated attack, multiple components from multiple sources. All of them existed before. And having so many steps is actually going to be pretty good for us because it gives us more opportunities for detection and for prevention. So let's talk about the TTPs. What are the TTPs for this end-to-end attack?
So yeah, this section sums the TTPs used by the threat actors and the malware families we have discussed earlier. As this is known about the group, so many of the techniques for exploitation, data collections, privilege escalations are not known. So one reason can be due to the lack of visibility in victim environment, as like they mostly target small and medium-sized organizations with low budgets and cybersecurity. So moving on to the initial access, phishing emails are sent to victims to lure them to download and execute payload. And also they are known to exploit vulnerabilities in public-facing applications. And also they are known to buy credentials from initial access brokers. Moving on to the execution section, as we have already seen in the malware analysis section that they have utilized command shell, PowerShell to execute obfuscated commands and communicate with C2 server. And also they have utilized native API to perform system discoveries and modify registry values seen in the analysis section, analysis part. Moving on to the persistence, they have utilized scheduled tasks for persistence, which I have seen in the case of System BC, and also Phobos ransomware variant utilizes modifies run registry keys startup folders for persistence. Also, moving on to discovery, they have utilized native API, as we have already discussed earlier, that they perform system name discovery, registry value, files and folders paths, and also they are known to utilize WNet enum resource functions for network share enumerations. Moving on to the defense evasion, as I've already said that we have analyzed multiple smoke loader sample. Smoke loader also performs process ingestion on legitimate Windows processes such as explorer.exe and drop payloads by smoke loader, and others are masquerading as legitimate binary, and other times they are obfuscated. Also, advanced threat actors have utilized System BC to encrypt traffic going to the command and controls, and also they tend to disable Windows Defender by using NetAssert, which is a Windows internal binary. So moving on to command and control, they have utilized PowerShell command line to communicate with C2 and download the instruction, as you have already seen in the analysis section. They have utilized invoke expression, which is sub strings, to communicate with command and control and download files in the systems. So moving on to the impact section, they have known to delete shadow copies, backups, and backup catalogs to prevent victims from restoring the data. So they have also modified boot configuration data to prevent auto recovery. So some of the TTP's part is threat actors' initial access techniques and payloads can differ, but after getting execution, other patterns are similar among threat actors. So common TTPs of threat actors can be looked to fill up the missing tactic and technique section. So,
right. So we've pretty much enumerated the impact, command and control, defense, evasion, discovery, persistence, and even initial access. What do we do about detecting? So when we do this research, we basically do it for our customers so that we can create detection rules and detection playbooks for them. Let's talk about what we can do here.
So let's move on to the detection part. So before starting with the detection part, there are some required log sources. So there are some requirements, and you need to enable like process creation with command line, registry, file system, and script logging should be enabled. And besides those, logs from Windows Sysmon, IDS, IPS, and firewalls are required for the relevant detection rule and playbooks to work. So yeah, before starting out on the detection part, there will be a short introduction on the LogPoint source query language. It is necessary to understand the basics of the query in order to understand why the shown query was written in a particular way. So moving on, LogPoint has implemented common taxonomy in its normal section, and as a result, query are much more simpler than other SIM platforms. So use of common fields makes it easy to source a particular field and value in multiple event source. Some common taxonomy examples are like Windows Event ID 4688 and Sysmon Event ID 1 are for process creation, and like those logs, when normalized, those logs have same labels, process create, and have same key fields name. And also in every product's event source and destinations address have same key field name, like source address and destination address. They are taxonomized into source address and destination address. So moving on to the detection part, the alerts. As primary method of gaining initial access, the 8-base have utilized spoofing, which is just macros enabled Office applications. So we can use this alert to detect suspicious child process spawned by Office applications such as MS Pub, VGO, Excel, PowerPoint, which doesn't normally spawn processes such as PowerShells. So moving on, we have observed multiple samples that exploited the CB 2017-11-882 for initial access and execution of the payload. This provide red alert can look for suspicious child process spawned by equation editor, which in other case doesn't normally spawn other child process. So adversary has been found dropping script files such as PBS, JS, PBA, and other scripting file and executed it by W script or C script. So this can be detected by using this alert, which looks for process creation events where processes are either W script or C script, and command line contains file extensions such as JavaScript, VBS, and others shown in this part here. So yeah, after gaining initial access, obfuscated PowerShell command lines are executed, which can be detected using suspicious PowerShell parameters of string detected. This alert looks for suspicious command line arguments, which process is PowerShell.exe. So yeah, if you have enable skip block logging, then this below query can be utilized with sources for those PowerShell command line arguments in skip block text. As the earlier one detects the execution of encoded PowerShell commands and other suspicious commands, this query helps in detecting execution of commands that allows adversaries to connect to internet and download files. So these are generally Windows PowerShell commands or some binaries that get installed by default when installing the Windows. Sorry. So after detecting the execution of replicate command, analysts can detect suspicious file download in suspicious location by using this alert. So what it does is it looks for file creation event where files are created in path shown in the query. So these are publicly writable folders. So most malwares and adversaries tend to drop payload in these folders. So you need to make sure Sysmon is enabled for this query, for this alert to work. And moving on, adversaries modifies auto-run registry key, as we have seen in the case of Phobos ransomware analysis. So this alert looks for registry modifications, events of auto-run and startup registry keys. The filter is included in detail field to detect suspicious modification of registry values, and it also helps to reduce false positive tips. we have observed that the Phobos has utilized NetSS binary to disable the Windows Defender. So this alert looks for execution of commands that indicates disable of Defender where process is NetSS. Also, adversaries delete shadow copies to prevent restoration of data. By using this alert, deletion of backups and shadow copies using various Windows internals can be detected. So we haven't mentioned all the alerts related to the 8-base because of time constraint. So you can go to the ETP report or our download portal for downloading or viewing those alerts.
Now, this is really interesting, I think, for everybody, because as you have seen, some of the detections that Anish showed here are not IOC based. They're not specific to this malware. While we added them in the process of researching this malware, they are very good for detecting other attacks that might try to write files somewhere or that might try to use PowerShell, which most attacks do. So some of those rules are very specific and would be very accurate in detecting this specific attack. But many of the rules that we showed here would be nice to have, very good to use in any environment, even after this attack group moves on and changes some of its TTPs and moves to different ones because everybody can detect and stop them. Those would still be useful. And still, detection is great. Response is even better. And we have some things that we prepared for you here as well. Right, Anish?
Yeah. So let's move on to the detection and response part. So LogPoint SIEM is integrated with SOAR and AgentX that provides real-time monitoring and analysis of log data from various sources. It also has automated incident response capabilities. As SOAR is included, organization can automate incident response actions based on predefined out-of-the-box playbooks, and also you can create one. And also, AgentX is integrated with OS Query. So with the help of OS Query, organization can gain detailed visibility into endpoint activities and perform advanced surrounding and forensic investigations. So as you have seen, malware families modifying or setting up new registry values. So the AgentX delete registry value playbook can be used to delete such modified registry values without going to the individual host. So you can delete it by the LogPoint platform. Moving on to the potential command and control playbook. It can be utilized to detect communication with the command and control server and respond them by blocking those C2 addresses. It works by checking IP addresses and domain reputations in a threat intelligence platform. It also utilizes entropy to detect domains generated with random domain algorithm. After detecting malicious command and control, it responds by blocking the server addresses or domains. So the ransomware investigation is on these playbooks. It looks for multiple artifacts and techniques used by adversaries. It will be further discussed in the next slide. So after the trigger of this playbook, the first thing it looks for is whether the detected artifacts such as IP addresses, it can be hash, domains, are malicious or not by going through the threat intel platforms. And then it also looks for techniques commonly used by ransomware such as scaling tasks and modifying auto-run registries, credential dumping, etc. So this playbook, LogPoint AgentX isolate or isolate host, can be used as last resort options to prevent further damage from ransomware attacks by isolating the host from the network. We only recommend to use this playbook when you have confirmed that there is an intrusion or the host is infected. So isolate and unisolate can be done through this playbook. So you don't have to worry about.
Anish, so those playbooks can all be downloaded from our portal. They're available. Some of them, I think, are even available in the out-of-box, the isolate, unisolate at least. is available for customers right out of the box. But even if you have a different system, right? If you're not using AgentX and you have a specific EDR vendor like Microsoft or like CrowdStrike or like Trend, you can still use those playbooks to make your response a lot quicker and make your investigation a lot easier.
So there are other more playbooks that can be helpful, but we have only included few. So moving on to the recommendations part, to prevent edge-based intrusion or reduce the damage from intrusion from edge-based or other threat actors, we recommend the following. So first of all, you need to use the Logpoint analytics and playbooks we have created and enable required log sources that we have mentioned. So regular employee awareness and training helps to prevent many of the attacks. Implementing strong password policies, which requires users to create lengthy passwords, can protect from brute force attacks. And also, by implementing least privilege, organizations can limit user access and can also prevent potential damage that can be dealt by abusing the privilege of compromised user accounts. So even if a password is compromised, if you have enabled multiple factor authentications, it can prevent unauthorized access to user accounts. So you should also enable MFA, especially for remote access or cloud-based services. And moving on, regularly auditing privileged accounts and their activities is crucial because these accounts have elevated access and permissions that can potentially give malicious actors unauthorized access to sensitive data or critical systems. Also, conducting regular incident response drills helps in identifying security gaps. Regularly updating your devices, browsers, and other software applications is crucial security practice that can help protect your systems from non-vulnerabilities and cyber threats, as in most of the cases, organizations are attacked by using the 0 days. So you need to regularly update your device softwares. So backing up important data regularly is crucial to protect against data loss and security breaches. And having proper logging, visibility of assets, and monitoring of systems are essential components of a robust cybersecurity strategy. Performing network segmentation to keep important systems and sensitive data apart from the rest of the network. This helps to combine possible breaches and minimize attackers' lateral movement. Also, to detect intrusions at an early stage, we recommend setting up honeypot accounts and system, which needs to be monitored for any activities regularly. Yeah. Moving on to the question.
Yes. Well, thank you, Anis and Eddie, for presenting this, making us today a bit smarter on edge-based and how to detect it and even how to respond to it. It has been very insightful. Now it's time for questions. It seems that we have some questions. Nonetheless, I insist, if you have more questions, please use the Q&A. I mean, we have plenty of time, so please don't go home with a question unanswered. So one of the questions we have already is, let me read through it. So what if we do not have the infrastructure like IDS, IPs, or firewall? Can we detect the attack? And what if we do not enable those auditing requirements?
Okay, so two different levels here. First, we would recommend to have, if you have the tools, definitely enable the log sources. If you don't have a tool, I think you saw that the detections that Anish was showing, each and every one of them is relevant to a specific type of log. A lot around Windows, that would probably be the first for most organizations, but the vast majority of organizations have firewalls. And if you have IDS and IPS enabled in your firewall, that's one option. And if you don't, still a lot of the detections here would work. But what we're trying to show here is, hey, when you have a big, sophisticated attack, multiple stages, you'll see parts of it in different parts of your network and the system. The more visibility you have, the more confident you are about exactly what's going on. And the earlier you'll be able to know that something is happening, even if the system is working in almost automatic mode. or if you're using a service provider. So Windows is probably the base. Without getting Windows logging, it will be hard to get visibility. About the other log sources, they're highly recommended. Each of them has the unique data that it brings to the story. This is why we recommend, especially if you have the tools, to enable logging on all of them. We've built our system to encourage this and make it easy for you, so you don't care about how much volume you're collecting, and you can detect those attacks early.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. Okay, the next question is a bit loaded. What are the best practices a small company without much infrastructure can use to be safe from such ransomware from 8base?
I think I'll take everybody back to the great advice that came from Anish regarding best practices. Right? If you look at the best practices, none of them says, or very few of them say, go and buy many tools and do sophisticated things. Do the very straightforward, simple things, the textbook things, right? Doing a good backup will save you not just from ransomware attacks. It can save you from many problems. And making sure the team is aware is always good, especially if the team is small and it's easier to get them to be aware. And it's easier for you to know that, hey, people have an idea and are not clicking all day stuff that they shouldn't be clicking. Same is true for configuration of the existing tools. You want to configure them to get all the data. You want to configure them in a secure way. So those are the straightforward things we can do. Usually I wouldn't say go and do 1,000 things, go and do many things and integration and stuff. No, just do the simple things.
Thank you. So don't click where you shouldn't click. Another question is brilliant review. So first of all, kudos to you guys. What is the recommendation with respect to the limitation of 420 rules possible on a backend? These rules obviously cover a large aspect of ransomware, which is great. But when highly focused rules on users or assets are required in an environment, you quickly hit the limit.
So I'll let Anish answer that as well, because it's two different points of view.
Yes.
But basically, I think some of the rules here, they're not specific. They're generic and would be a good idea to have in any system. From the systems I've seen together with support, I've seen many systems where there's less than 100 rules active. And there is definitely room to add more rules. If everything is already full, then expansion of some of the capabilities can take it even further. And Anish, what's your view on that?
Yeah, so there are lots of alerts, but the alerts are categorized according to the MITRE tactics. So you should use the alerts according to the environment. So if you think there are a high chance of phishing attacks, then you should be enabling those alerts related to the suspicious process creation by Office applications. And after, if those alerts are triggering, then you can enable others alert accordingly, like the PowerShell commands and the alerts for scheduling tasks, auto-run registry modifications, and accordingly to the environment. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What else? Someone also asked, where can I download Logpoint content, all that content you guys are talking about?
Yeah, it can be downloaded in the service desk page.
Okay, that was sweet and easy.
Yeah. We probably should share the link with everybody. We'll do it after the presentation.
Yes.
For anybody who still doesn't download from there every day.
Perfect. We will make sure that link is shared as well. Someone also asked, those attacks change quickly. Are these detections still relevant?
So that's exactly the answer about the good work here by Anish. Some of it is quite general and would be quite useful, not just for this attack, but for many other similar and even unrelated attacks. Some of the rules here will become stale and need to be removed after several months because the attacker will move to different techniques. So as same way that it's a good idea to add new content, it's also a pretty good idea to review the content and throw away anything that may no longer be that relevant.
Also, in our security research team, like we are constantly working on assessing our alerts according to the latest threads and updating them accordingly. And like after updating alerts, we also release those alerts on a timely basis. So what a customer can do is like follow up those alert rules release and enable those latest alerts. So we are constantly updating alerts based on new threads by going to the sandbox, analyzing malwares, and reading the latest reports from other vendors. So yeah, we are constantly updating our alerts, but in some cases there may be some false positives according to the environment. But yeah, we are updating our alerts every time.
Wonderful. Seems that there are no more questions either in the chat or in the Q&A. Otherwise, we can just start by closing it. So perhaps let's closing it. So thank you very much for all your questions. Here it concludes our webinar on 8base. And also, let me remind you that if you are curious to know more about our Emerging Threats Protection Service, you can always contact our team and they will help you out with it. As well, stay tuned to our blog. We regularly publish new security analysis, either blog posts, but also emerging threat reports like this one on 8base. Again, thank you for joining us today. Until the next time. Bye.